All views, opinions, and comments expressed herein are solely those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of StoneX Group Incorporated and/or its subsidiaries. This content does not constitute an offer or solicitation to open a trading account, to trade in any specific product, or to engage with any services provided by StoneX Group Incorporated or its subsidiaries. This content is not intended for residents of any particular country or jurisdictions where such content is prohibited.
Welcome to the Trading Global Macro Podcast from StoneX, where we unpack the complex forces driving global financial markets. I'm John Kicklighter, Global Head of Content at StoneX.
And I'm Matt Weller, Global Head of Market Research for StoneX's self-directed brands. Each week in this podcast, we explore the macroeconomic trends and geopolitical events shaping Forex, equities, commodities, interest rates, and more. John, what is our topic today?
I think one that a lot of people are interested in, perhaps have put a lot of hope into, and we're here not to pour cold water, but we're here to talk about it practically, and hopefully this is not going to be a one-off because I'm not an expert in this, but it's one we can make something of a continuing amendments to, improvements to, and learnings that we can share with you. But the topic is how to use AI in your analysis and trading. So if you haven't logged into any of these big AI portals and started to experiment around, it's quite interesting. There's a lot to learn. But when you're faced with something like OpenAI's ChatGPT, with just that prompt, how can I help you, or what can I help you with, can be very intimidating. And I know a lot of expectations here that you can just put in, let's say, make for me a ideal trading strategy. And I have to say, I really don't think that's going to end well for a number of reasons, which we'll discuss. Do you think that it has any possible outcome where it's going to provide you a good trading strategy, Matt?
Solely by itself? No, not particularly. And that's not a knock against these AI platforms, which are amazing tools, but it's more of a statement on market efficiency. So we're getting access to these now, but clearly there's stronger models internally, and these types of models have been out for years internally in many cases. So to me, it's a matter of if you could just put in a simple 20-word prompt and find an infinite money printing machine. It's sort of the economist joke where they walk past a $20 bill and neither of them bother picking it up because otherwise, if it was a real $20 bill, it already would have been picked up. I think in this case, it's not really a joke here. If there was an easy way to just sit back and let AI trade for you, then someone else would already be doing it. They'd be squeezing that inefficiency out of the market, and it would no longer work. That's the thing about complex adaptive systems like markets. However, I think we can still have a fruitful discussion talking about some of the areas where AI can help your trading, your analysis, how you go about approaching the market. So that's I always like to use the analogy of a cyborg. It's kind of half human, half robot, where AI can plug holes that humans have, maybe work around the clock, whereas people need to sleep and take their kids to the park and whatnot. But you still need that element of human oversight and perspective that frankly these silicon overlords don't necessarily have, at least yet. So that would be I would use it more as a tool, and it can be a very complementary tool, but not as a trading system in and of itself. Do you agree with that perspective, John?
Oh, I agree. I'm a little bit more cynical about most things, and certainly with this, not cynical of its utility. It's certainly a great tool, which we'll cover a few things today. But the hope that seems to be placed upon this as solving such complex things is just impractical and feasible. Just at the very face of it, we know of a few things. I think being in this industry for so long, you really cannot offer trade recommendations from a regulatory perspective. So we can't do it and out in the public. And if a LLM or an AI starts offering trade recommendations and you lose money because it didn't work out, you could go and sue that AI company, and they're going to avoid that at all costs. So inherently that becomes more of a problem. Now you can unlock it and everything like that, but you still have the problem. So they'll try to avoid that as companies that have requirements for regulators and for legal purposes. But you also have situations. I'll also extend to people who are good at using AI or using these prompts. So you'll have people who will say, I have the perfect trading strategy I use for ChatGPT. Come and pay me money to copy trades, or you give me your money and I'll put it in for you. We've been in this industry for a long enough time that people have said that before they had AI to support them. If they were already that well off in terms of their trading strategy, they wouldn't go out and solicit people to come and give them money. It's usually a sign that they're charlatans. So the same, AI is just an additional tool in that toolkit, and it doesn't make things that great. And one of the main reasons why is there's the concept of junk in, junk out, which if you do not know what to ask and you don't find means to producing the right information, then you're not going to get an output that is meaningful. I mean, I've used AI for a number of things, including just reading through. Just the most recent example, actually very recent, reading through a TV's user manual because I was having connectivity problems with a external speaker. So using it for that, even though it can read through this manual very easily, the two manuals, the speaker's manual and the TV's manual, you still have to ask it the right information for the right output and for the right inputs of what's the model, what's the make to look for. So you really have to know something about trading and something about analysis to ask proper and train properly the tool that you're looking to use. And I know you mentioned a few other issues that you've seen before. What were those?
Yeah, some things to be aware of for someone who's not intimately familiar with using these tools. And if you're not, I encourage you to just start experimenting, because the best way to be aware of some of these limitations is actually to experience them. But one that people have quoted for a long time, I think it's becoming a smaller problem, but still something to be aware of, is hallucinations. Basically, if the data isn't available, or if the calculation can't be done, ultimately these models are programmed to be people pleasers, for lack of a better term. So they're not going to say, in most cases, no, I can't do that, or this data doesn't exist. They might just make it up, and in that way they're fulfilling their purpose. But obviously, if some data is made up and you're trading off of that, that's a very negative scenario and not something you want. So you always have to double check and be aware of those things. And then, just broadly speaking, I've heard it described as a jagged frontier in terms of the skill set that these models can do, which is to say they're really, really good at some things that you can't even, comprehend, but they also can't do some really simple things. There were examples of, like, how many P's are there in the word applesauce or something, that the way the tokens are structured, for whatever reason, ChatGPT can't do this thing that my 7-year-old can do. I think by experimenting with these, seeing where it can complement you, but also where you and your own analysis should take the fore and really not be prone to some of those mistakes. Those are some of the key areas to be aware of. And ultimately, the best way to do that is just to experiment, not necessarily in one afternoon try to program a trading strategy and let it go, because you might miss some of those, but rather having those conversations, identifying, always double checking to make sure there aren't hallucinations, that it is something that the model can help you with, are going to be some really crucial steps along the path to using this as a complement to how you're trading or investing. Those would be my biggest takeaways that come to mind.
Yeah, those are very important. You're absolutely right. So let's take it from things to be wary of, because we are very much a try it out,
Mm-hmm.
test it, adapt, and use and utilize it as a tool if it's useful. Type, I think, perspective here. So let's talk about a few ways that this can be useful and where maybe experimentation could be very fruitful. I think we could do some very simple prompts. So if you're, let's say, newer to trading, or let's say you're new to technical analysis in particular, I think that's a good place, because I know a lot of fundamental traders out there, and they look at event risk or look at themes, or they're more of the old style portfolio management, but then they want to start including some technical analysis, but they don't know where to start. I mean, there's obviously a lot of books. It can be difficult to run through those books. So a perhaps very useful thing to do when you're staring at it, let's say your USD chart, and you're not familiar with the textbook definitions of technical patterns and don't even know where to start, you can perhaps take that prompt and put it into ChatGPT or whatever your preferred platform is. But with a addition of a chart, you can in turn ask what technical patterns. I'm doing this live for those that are listening. Do you see in this chart and daily chart of Euro USD? Let's see what it gives us. It's not going to be perfect, and it might give you something that you don't agree with, but this is why you want to run it and use it as a tool. You don't want to take it at face value. Learn along the way. I mean, there's no more important computer than the one in your head. But you can see that in this results, it's telling me there's a downtrend through late 2024, reversal and sustained uptrend through early 2025. Major technical patterns it suggests is a head and shoulders pattern through January, April of 2025. If I were looking at this, I would say that's probably stretching it. Personally, what do you think? What do you think of its take on this head and shoulders pattern through January and April of 2025?
So yeah, this for our audio listeners, it was a inverse head and shoulders pattern. So kind of at the start of the year here in euro dollar, and you can cross your eyes and say that. I think head and shoulders is kind of an interesting one because it's kind of prone to some subjectivity, but I think to kind of underscore your point, John, here, it's something that can be best used in this scenario, maybe as just an educational tool. Like if you don't even know what that pattern is, well, if it identifies it for you, you can at least be familiar with it and then do some more research. Say, oh, I don't think this is head and shoulders because of X and Y reason. Then you can almost have that give and take, almost like having a personal trading tutor or something like that. I think can provide value. So it can give you ideas, jumping off points, but again, not necessarily treating it as gospel. And if you're just starting out, it can be difficult to decide which of these things it feels more confident about or less so. But it certainly serves as a good jumping off point, and then base from which you can launch additional learning. So I don't think it's a bad identification, but it's not necessarily one I would necessarily be looking to trade off of or something like that. It is a little messy for our visual viewers here.
And even you and I, or like some of our other technical analysts that we have with us, we don't agree to the same pattern structures. I know I have conversations with you about patterns. I know I have conversations with James Stanley about technical patterns. He's been doing it for decades. And we don't always land in the same spot. So AI being very definitive in its results should always be questioned. So, but it's useful. It's thought provoking, and it does help you very quickly hone in on discrepancies or disputes, or maybe you do agree, and that's how you learn faster. There's no faster way of learning something than disagreeing with it and explaining why you don't believe that to be true. I mean, that's provocative thought, and that's critical thinking, which is what you want to pursue. Let's try another thing. So this is technicals. Maybe a really basic and foundational methodology of using this is asking it for major event risk that's coming up. What major event risk will impact the largest equity indices over the coming 2 weeks? And let's see what it comes up with. Because in the big picture for fundamentals, we would say that fundamental analysis and known event risk that is coming up can be of great consequence, because that's where a lot of volatility tends to be concentrated. If we know, let's say, non-farm payrolls, which came out recently, is going to be released on a specific day, then we should be monitoring it at the very least for this possible impact on volatility for benchmarks like the US dollar, or we can continue with our EURUSD example. So being able to search for something like that can be very useful. And let's see what it came with up. It says inflation price releases, releases of key inflation indicators like CPI and core PCE. Let's see, monetary policy and central bank commentary. And it's very generic. We can ask for it for specific dates, but remember, your prompts are going to be what drives the outcome. So if you want something specific, like give me exact times and dates, you need to ask that. But then you also need to go and check against a calendar to reaffirm that these events are indeed on the list. But knowing this information can be quite useful. And I know I produced this calendar to try to help people be aware of major events that are on the docket. So I know how useful it can be. But if you are looking for something very specific, flag flag the top events for this very specific market that I'm looking at. That could be a good distillation of the interesting things that you're looking for. So another easy prompt that can get you into a useful tool, but maybe not one that I'll do here live. But Matt, are there any more useful prompts that maybe are perhaps one step more complicated that could be of value that somebody can use?
Again, I would caution against doing the trading for you necessarily, but if you give it a specific set of parameters and say, identify a trading scenario where there's a jobs report coming up and there's a bullish engulfing candle and this market's above the moving average, in some cases it can do that. So identification according to the specifications of your trading strategy has some value. And another one, and I think this is maybe one of the better use cases, is reviewing past trades, whether you've marked up a chart or you have a database, which all traders probably should keep a track record of their previous trades, maybe even notes about how you were feeling. And once you have a sufficient quantity of those, you can upload a CSV there and say, hey, analyze this. It'll take 10 seconds to look through the entire thing and be like, oh, it looks like these days, there were certain setups. This trade, when you're trading on a Tuesday morning, it haven't been working out as well, or maybe it's you're letting your profits you're cutting your profits short, and perhaps the market continued in that direction ultimately. So the more data you can gather, whether that's on your state of mind, your specific trades, what your thesis was, it can sort of identify trends there that you might not be aware of. And in that way, trading in many cases can be a lonely endeavor. This is like a friend who's always on, infinitely patient, and ready to give you feedback on your past trades. So I think analysis of past trades, general education, identifying trade opportunities according to an outline that you've created. These are all some of the more useful tools that are useful ways of working that I found with AI, rather than just necessarily trade for me. So those are some of the big ones I found. As you mentioned, John, we'll continue to experiment here. I think there's a lot of opportunity, and perhaps we can do future episodes and identify some specific use cases that we found to hopefully help our listeners further.
Yes, that's a great example too. You find your favorite book and say, take these teachings and evaluate my trading against them. That's great. Yeah. So hopefully we'll keep doing touching back in on this as we learn more, as the AIs evolve and as tools are built around them. But for now, thanks for tuning in to Trading Global Macro Podcast from StoneX. If you enjoyed today's discussion, make sure to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. I'm John Kicklighter.
And I'm Matt Weller. Join us again next week for more insights into the trends and events shaping the world's financial markets. Thank you.